Welcome to session 2 of European Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Stanford Engineering. My name is Burton Lee. I'm a lecturer here at Stanford. Today we're featuring a session on Estonia and Germany with a particular focus on angels, venture capital, and accelerators. We have 3 speakers today. You can see, just for reference, those of us who are geographically challenged, exactly where Germany and Estonia are. We'll be saying a few more words about that in the future. So today's session, we are going to focus on Estonia and Germany. Our first 2 speakers are going to present what's happening broadly in Estonia, led by Andrus, followed up by Signe, our primary Estonian speaker, and then followed up by Uwe from Project A Ventures. And Andrus, I'm going to turn it over to you now. Thank you.
So thanks Burton, and I'm glad to be back here. So it's already 6 years Enterprise Estonia has been supporting the European Entrepreneurship and Innovation Thought Leaders seminar series at Stanford Engineering. So I'm representing Enterprise Estonia, which is our government business development and support organization. And here in Silicon Valley, I'm like a one-man show, helping our startups to find connections and also doing the other way around, helping US companies to go back to Estonia. So we are also like a financing agency. We are channeling through EU money. As you can see, our budget in 7-year chunks is something around 1 billion, actually US dollars. It's about 750 euros for the next 7 years. We do have a nice, extensive foreign rep offices here in US. It's only here in Silicon Valley, but we have also in Japan, Tokyo, in China, Shanghai, and many places in Europe and also in Russia. So where is Estonia? It's a smaller map of Europe. So we are already 96 years old. Our coat of arms is also on the corner. It has 3 blue skinny lions. It is cold up there. That's why. We are a small country. It's only 1.3 million people. We are in the EU from 2004, and also in NATO. We are in the Eurozone currency area from January 2011, and our GDP is about 21,000 US dollars. So I will give you a very brief intro about our business and entrepreneurial ecosystems, and also included some fun facts and some serious ones as well. Well, our capital, Tallinn, is considered to be one of the best Christmas destinations by CNN even. Unfortunately, this year it was no snow. It just started to snow last Friday. So it's now getting like this. So what our business framework is about, we are a Nordic country, and mentality is practically the same. The businesses are so integrated already, but there are also some carrots, real carrots, that our tax system is very simple. It's flat 21% for everybody, and the corporates pay it only when they take out the profits. So it's actually dividends are only taxed, not the reinvested profits. And we do have a very efficient company setup and many so-called e-services for the setup and also for the tax and also for the customs. Estonia has always ranked quite highly on many so-called business rankings, the ease of doing business by the World Bank, and also one of the best so-called global places for trading across borders, as well as the so-called wired index, that we do have a very good internet and data links available. The Skype phenomenon, I hope that you all know already that Skype was made in Estonia and still has its biggest development office and support office there. So the Skype phenomenon has really helped to establish the so-called e-Estonia term. And nowadays we are also hosting the NATO Cyber Defense Center in Tallinn. And there are various e-government and e-private applications available, starting from the tax board. Actually, it takes only a couple of minutes to declare taxes through that. As it is so simple, it's only flat tax rate. And then also registering a company takes also a couple of minutes. There are all kind of e-services available. We can do voting through internet, so on the national or municipal elections. And the banking, I think it's already totally or 100% now internet-based or electronic. And now more and more mobile applications are also appearing on the market through the mobile ID. And actually, yeah, the electronic ID that was already introduced in 2002, together with a digital signature, so all the government offices and private businesses actually accept the digital signature as well as the physical signature. Now going to the startup scene, Estonia is already known as a so-called startup nation, and this slide I'm using here by Robin Waters a couple of years ago at London Seed Camp really showed the difference, how many startups per capita are coming out from Estonia and what's the rest of the Europe doing. And actually even on the angel list here in US, there is an extensive number of Estonian entries, and if we again compare it per capita, then our country is number one. And the term Estonian mafia, the Twitter hashtag, was actually coined by Dave McClure from 500 startups here, as he was already confused about the number of Estonian companies, and some had even some similar names. And it's not only the startups we are, of course, number one per capita, it's also the international models. And some of them are actually here in the Bay Area as well. So what are the main connectors or the key players on the Estonian entrepreneurship landscape, especially on the startup side? It is the Garage 48, which is like a non-profit organization set up to do the hackathons during the weekend. You will do from the idea to the full working prototype service. And now they are exporting this idea to our neighboring countries, to Finland, Latvia, Russia, Ukraine, and even to Africa. Then Enterprise Estonia with a lot of support schemes to the innovation awareness and also business model competitions. We do have a government like a venture arm. Signe will talk more about the angel networks and also the VCs. The Tallinn Tech University with their so-called Mentory program is one of the first now in Estonian universities trying to connect the students, the academia, and also the enterprises. And yes, the accelerators, incubators, Signe will talk more. So what has happened during 2013? We went electric in last January. Actually, Estonia became the first country to have a nationwide fast charging network for electric cars. The technology that was worked out for the billing and payment platforms was made by an Estonian company, Now Innovations, which is also present in US, and they're under the name of Mobile Now, and they are doing the same thing here, also providing mobile parking platforms. We also went to space last year, so it was our first satellite was launched. It was a student EstCube, And last but not least, actually in December, I would say we went also internationally digital as Estonian Prime Minister signed with our Finnish counterpart a treaty digitally to cooperate on IT software and e-government services. So it was really the first so-called cross-border digital signature treaty. And also news from here in California, actually, how to say, a skinny India guy and a big black guy actually invested in an Estonian company, Pipedrive, which is doing a pipeline tool for active salespeople, and that was announced last October. It is the owners of the Sacramento Kings. And going on in sports, Estonia has brought a totally new sports event. It's kicking. It's from the so-called humble swing to a really nice go-around. And then in Northern Europe, we are doing the wife-carrying championships, and actually the best way to carry your wife is called the Estonian method. And the Estonian guy is still holding the best time for that. So looking now to the future, the 9 tech trends by Tech EU, by Robin Waters again. He was forecasting the 9 tech trends for 2014 and also mentioning European startups doing businesses around them, and actually 3 Estonian startups were mentioned there as well. So in the connected cars, it was high mobility. In the 3D printing section, it was GrabCAD doing the sharing of CAD files and 3D models, and in the digitalization of finance, it was TransferWise, which helps to bring so-called revolutionizing the money exchange and transfer of money from country to country. And now, finally, also putting on my so-called investment agency hats, what are the so-called offers to big multinational or international companies. So Estonia is increasingly a considered location for data centers, for tech manufacturing and service centers, as we do have a strategic location that's and also a safe location, even weather-wise. We have a modern infra with very good data links. We have a strong power opportunities. We are self-sufficient in electricity on oil shale based, and there are increasing amounts available by wind and biomass. And of course, we do have a competitive business environment with the 0% of corporate income tax. And last but not least, it's the highly qualified labor with a lot of language skills, finance and IT skills. So that was my last slide, and hope you got a glimpse of Estonia, good and bad and fun. So
thank you, Andrus. We have time for 2 quick questions. First one is, could you demonstrate the Estonian method for us here?
I volunteer.
I can be the instructor.
So maybe after class, we'll do a demonstration of the Estonian method out in front in the plaza. Any questions from the audience for Andrus? Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm from Moldova, not far away from Estonia. So how come in the 90s we started almost at the same time after the collapse of the Soviet Union? What was the condition that Estonia went ahead?
Well, I think it was a lot of the so-called Nordic mentality we had, and also that we were so close, of course, to Finland and Sweden, and we immediately came integrated economically with them. And then it was also our macroeconomic reforms that were really made very quickly in 1992. It was the privatization, one thing, and then it was the monetary reform that we went to a currency board arrangement. We fixed our currency to the German Deutschmark, and only when the euro was introduced, then it was just technical fixing to the euro. So during this, from 92 till 2011, during these 10 years, our currency was stable, fixed. It moved only with the Deutsche Mark as it moved to other currencies. So I think these all things, that was the main things.
Tax reform as
well.
Tax reform.
Well, yeah, and tax reform. So having a really simple, flat tax rate. So.
Thank you, Andrus.
Okay, thanks.
So our main Estonian speaker is Signe Viimsalu, CEO of the Estonian Business Angels Network, who's going to give us an overview of some of the challenges in building angel communities in Europe, especially in Nordic Europe, and specifically what's going on in Estonia. Thank you, Signe, for jumping on board at the very last minute. And this is forward.
Hello, everybody. Silence, come on. Hello. Hello. Great. Happy to be here, first time in Silicon Valley. So, as Burton said, my name is Signe. I come from Estonian Business Angel Network. Actually, I'm a lawyer, more than 50 years already. I have 2 startups as well, and I'm working as executive coach at the same time. So, multitasking, integrative doer. First, I will give you a short overview about what's happening in Europe at the moment. So I have some statistics from European Business Angels Network for year 2012. So as you can see, actually, business angels investments have grown rapidly. So 5.2 billion euros invested by business angels in 2012 compared to 1.9 billion euros by venture capitalists. A visible market has also grown. 460 business angel networks identified already in Europe, and some 260,000 business angels also in Europe. And the results, so almost 3,000 companies were invested and 18,000 jobs created. So 16 companies got funded out of 100, and the fastest growing markets are Finland, Ireland, and Turkey. Turkey because of tax incentives, Ireland because of co-investment funds, and Finland because of amount of business angels, actually. So what's happening in Estonia? Again, where we are, located. So the Skype phenomenon. At the same time, in 2012, according to Estonian Venture Capital Association, the numbers are the following. So we had only 200 million euros funds under management. We had some 82 portfolio companies. More than half of them actually were investing in seed, startup, and early growth. As you can see, headquarters, not only in Estonia, also in US, Singapore, UK, so lots of international companies actually. And now, what the future will bring us, future is actually very, very, very promising. We have set up a goal, basically to have 1 billion euros under management in 2020. And for my personal opinion, I think that it is actually doable because Credex has already allocated 65 million euros. Then this Baltic Innovation Fund, which is a cooperation between the Baltic countries and European Investment Fund, has allocated already 100 million. So it will be leveraged with a private sector, with a private funds. So I think that in 7 years, it's this 1 billion euros under management is quite promising and quite, as I said, doable. And as for seed stage, EstBAN, Estonian Business Angels Network, also wants to be a part of it. So at the moment we are planning and designing and trying to create a co-investment scheme with a public partner. So it will be approximately 20 million euros. And we hope to launch it in second half of maybe this year, but more likely in 2015. We'll see. What's so special about Estonian Business Angels? It's typical business angel network, maybe, but maybe not. So we are, how to say, we carry a really like a hands-on attitude. So it means that, first of all, our members are quite young. We are serial entrepreneurs, but we are probably 20 years younger than business angels here in US. 10 years younger than in Finland, for example. So we are not professional business angels. We work as an entrepreneur or somebody else daily. And so it means that their working days are really long, like 12, maybe 14 hours, even a day. And we really like to also build the game. It's not about just waiting and seeing what's going to happen, but it's also to be part of something which you can create. So what we are doing is actually basically building an ecosystem at the same time. So for example, with Finnish Business Angel Network Viimsalu, we have trainings together. We are investing together, so basically we have cross-border syndication. Also with St. Petersburg Business Angels. And with EestBAN, European Business Angel Network, we are designing that co-investment scheme at the moment because we have knowledge, we know how to do it. So we won't gonna, of course, copy-paste the Dutch or Portuguese scheme, but we were taking examples from the best ones. And the other partners, Technopol, one of the most known accelerator in Tallinn, in Estonia. We have pitching trainings in cooperation with them. EestBAN itself is also a member of SVCA, Estonian Venture Capital Association. And of course, we cannot forget about the universities. So Vectory from Tallinn Tech University is our partner as well. And of course, the shared experience is the best one. So as you can see, Mr. Paul Bragiel from IO Ventures is sharing his experience in Tallinn over a cup of coffee. He's also investor in one accelerator in Tallinn, Game Founders. So representative of Game Founders on the left side. Kadri is also there. And some more friends and partners of Estonian Business Angels, namely Gust. I don't know whether you know what is Gust, but it's an IT platform. In US, of course, you have AngelList. But in Europe, the most common one is actually Gust. So if, for example, you apply in Gust, so I can send your application to 28, maybe 30 countries in Europe with one click. So it's easy to circulate. And for SmartCap is leading venture capital fund in Estonia at the moment in terms of seed investments. Others are basically service providers, and of course Enterprise Estonia, the main supporter for us. And in short, already mentioned, we are the first network in Estonia, hopefully not the last one, of course. Recently established. I joined in March after my studies and ventures in Indonesia and India. It is unique because it's an umbrella organization only established by private individuals. It's not so often in Europe actually, but just individuals would like to establish something like that. Usually governments are involved. And yeah, that's it.
Go back. What is SOBA?
SOBA is a St. Petersburg Business Angels Network.
So Russian.
Yeah, Russian one. Yes, yes. Okay, because we are really, very close, and we just 300 kilometers from Tallinn, basically. So far, I'm very happy that we have achieved our goals and actually over-exceeded them as well, because we had, for first year, we thought that maybe we would do maybe 6 or 10 investments, that's it. But at the moment, it seems that we have done more than 40 investments, and this is just an example. The first one, Game Founders, is Accelerator, actually. Wise Guys, Startup Wise Guys, also Accelerator. Saturn is for just a young company, mainly in electronics. Node Cloud, Big Data, Pipedrive, of course. Vital Fields is the last one. It's about agriculture and management in it. What I would like to emphasize is actually that with CloudTex, it has been a cross-border syndication in cooperation with Russian business angels, not only Estonian ones. And with Lusopak, it's not Estonian startup at all, it's actually a Portuguese startup. So we are trying to export our mobile parking solution to Lisbon. We'll see what's going to happen with that. Yeah, about members. It's definitely not only about Estonia and Estonians. We have British on board, we have Finnish people on board, we have people from Luxembourg, Germany, and maybe even somebody from this crowd. Welcome to join. But the thing is, we don't care which phone you use. It's just the mentality, just the hands-on attitude, the willingness, the ability to invest and allocate your funds and money, and time, of course. And if you apply, then of course you should have some recommendations. So, 2. And in this picture, from right side, the president, Mr. Ivar Siimer. In the middle, we have Mr. Ari Korhonen, who is vice president at European Business Angel Network. He has invested more than 70 times, so he is really, really well experienced, and we are really, really happy to have him on board as well. And on left side, we have Rigu Asikainen, who is actually chairman of Finnish Business Angel Network. So he has also made more than 20 investments, if I'm not mistaken at the moment. So really, really cross-border syndication things going on in Estonia. And where to invest, of course. And for startups, just please apply through that website. And of course, yeah, in team and in super stuff, basically. 2 requirements. We are not sector specifics, only we exclude real estate and gambling, but everything else is actually welcome. And how to use Estonia for investing. As Andrus previously mentioned, that we have basically 0 tax. But I wanted to show just a little bit more. Of course, disclaimers applies, but it is possible to invest through Estonian company. It is really, really tax efficient. You get the slides and you can figure it out at home. And the other thing is that Estonian company can be used successfully as an intermediary for cross-border financing as well. This is also really tax efficient. Of course, there are a couple of other schemes, so like piggy bank and then some others, but these are the most common ones which we know. So in conclusion, actually, if you are interested in Estonia and in EstBAN, then there are 2 events coming up. One is Estonian ICT Week in April, and there's a special event called Latitude 59. And there's also another conference, Finance Estonia, in June, so welcome to join. That's it for now.
Thank you, Signe. So we have time for a few questions, but first I wanted to show you this very cool T-shirt, which is the official T-shirt of EstBAN. Signe, I think you should open up an online store, because I bet half of the audience here would love to get one of these.
Good.
This is very cool. Who has a question for Signe? Any in the back row? Any of the investors in the back row? Dirk.
Quick question to you, please. Skype has been a tremendous success for you. Is this how Estonia would like to define its future successes, or are you taking moderate more success? Because it depends on what kind of execution models, what kind of corporations you like to be with Silicon Valley, if you only want to create Skype-size successes.
I think this question is more for policymakers, but what I can say is that EstBAN, of course, definitely wants to be a serious player in the ecosystem in order to support these kind of successful stories to happen. Sorry. That's okay.
Any angel investors in the audience? Currently active angels? I think we have a few. So Signe mentions that some of her angels, people she's working with in Europe, have 20 deals up to 70 deals, 70 being considered extremely experienced in the European context, 20 as well. What would be the typical top level numbers of deals that a Silicon Valley angel would have done after 5 years? Any numbers that the investors in the audience could throw out from some of the top angel groups?
Especially cross-border investments.
No, let's talk about just local investors first.
I would challenge with cross-border.
Those are the difficult ones. No numbers from the back row? Come on, you guys must have some ideas of what angels typically do here.
Maybe 1 or 2 deals a year is what I've heard.
1 or 2 deals a year from Band of Angels, Sandhill?
No, from individual angel investors that belong to the Band of Angels or Viirg Forum and so forth.
Okay.
Just to mitigate the risk, right? And the individual stake usually is 20, 50,000. Okay, 250. Okay.
We have time for a couple more questions. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. I was European.
Could you speak up, please?
Yeah, sure. I have I think it was a great presentation, and just something I wanted to ask you is that, like, don't you think that it would be a bit more interesting for foreign investors if the European community had an harmonized tax system? What I mean is that now currently you have a clear advantage in your low taxation compared, for instance, to Italy or Germany, but this creates a sort of problem because whenever a foreign company wants to invest, it has to learn your specific tax system, and it becomes not very scalable.
Yes and no, because there are tax incentives for business angels, for example, in different countries. In Estonia, we don't have that. We have just this corporate tax advantage. But for business angels, if I'm an investor and I want to invest, then there's no tax incentive. Versus to Turkey, where we have 75% write-offs, or in Finland, I don't know a certain amount, but they have temporarily some sort of regulation in place at the moment for 3 years, so we can also write off some some amounts. So if you put this all together, then you can see that everything is basically equal. Just you have to know where is it. And in order to harmonize, of course, we are trying to do that, but it takes time. As I'm a lawyer, it took 40 years in order to have cross-border insolvency proceedings regulation.
4-0.
Yes, 4-0. So I think the tax is quite complicated, so it might take also another 40 years.
And how long did it take to get a unitary patent scheme in Europe?
I don't remember. Actually.
About 40 years.
Maybe. Well, less. But yeah.
Yes, sir.
Are there any specific, out of these 70 companies, for instance, what are the typical sectors you invest in, verticals, B2B, B2C? I guess the demand is, the consumer demand is not huge in Estonia, so how do you think about that?
Yeah, but the thing is, we tell to our startups that they have to go global from day one, basically. So, and the most popular sectors are, of course, IT and B2B. B2C is not so popular, but IT related to everything. IT in financials, IT in medicine, IT in everything, which can be combined with IT.
One more question. I have, oh, yes, sir.
May I come back to the taxation issue, because I think it's important to remember that here in the United States you have a very tough tax competition among the states here. And it is also interesting to observe that in California, which is, I think, the most successful location for innovation, the tax actually advantages are not so evident. Actually, it's quite the contrary. So there are other elements that are much more important than taxation. But having said that, I encourage you to continue with a little bit of tax competition also with Europe. And I'm speaking now as a Swiss, so I cannot say anything else. If I may add a question to that, because that was not a question. I have seen European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and other publicly financed institutions. Do we have an idea how much money in innovation comes from private sources and how much percentage-wise would approximately come from, let's say, publicly funded?
It's usually pari passu, actually. It's 50-50, or for the next 7 years, maybe 60-40. It depends on the regulation on state aid. European Union, state aid regulations.
Signe, one last question. Do you have a sense, can you give us approximate numbers? Finland, Estonia, Sweden, numbers of active angels. Would you know what those numbers look like today in networks and outside of networks?
Finland is very, very active. They have almost 300 members. In Sweden, they had a network. Now this network has merged with Venture Capital Association, basically. Some 100 or something. What else? Which country?
Estonia.
Estonia. I mean, Estonia is 52 at the moment, but next month probably 60 already. Okay. And I don't know about the invisible market. I know only visible market.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. So now we're going to move from Nordic region, from Estonia down to Germany. As I mentioned, I ran across Uwe Horstmann by accident in Vilnius when we were speaking at the same conference, Silicon Valley Comes to Baltics. I was very impressed with Uwe and the story of what they're doing at Project A Ventures. Project A Ventures is based in Berlin, and Uwe, thank you flying all the way in from Berlin to speak here at Stanford Engineering. Please tell us what's going on with Project A Ventures and generally in the Berlin and German ecosystem.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks guys for stopping by. I do some teaching in Germany, but those are always mandatory courses. So typically they're packed with people who have to be there. And typically it's kind of a tough challenge to keep people a bit motivated. So Thanks a lot for taking the time, actually out of your probably busy schedules. I'm going to try to make it worthwhile. And I did prepare some stuff for yesterday when Burton and I walked through it, and I basically took a bit of a beating for those slides, for that presentation that I had prepared, because what I try to do is, in those holy halls of, intellectual capacity, I try to put everything that I wanted to say in complicated diagrams and explain, why are things how we see they are and how do we react to that. And he said, nobody's going to care about that. People think this is probably going to be total rubbish. Now, I'm not sure if it was more about the methodology that I used with all the different complicated slides, or is it...
Never said rubbish.
Well, you guys were there, right? I mean, yeah. Didn't say much after that. No, so I'm not really sure if it was about the tools that I used, or if it was your polite way of saying, by the way, it's not that smart. What are you trying to say?
No, what I was saying was, here in the Valley, we value simplicity over complexity.
Yeah. Okay. So, so what I tried is to make something really simple. You're going to be basically the lab rats now for this, and let's see if it's simple while still making some sense, I think. First of all, also, Burton gave us the tip to put in some maps, right? So you see a lot of maps, not because I'm particularly fond of them, but it's a bit of apparently it displays simplicity, so that's what I'm trying to do. This is a bit of we speak about Berlin, right? I mean, to be fully frank, we see ourselves a bit more of a pan-European operation. So we don't really care too much about borders. To be also honest, I don't know shit about where there is, probably should watch my language because it's going on the internet. I don't know much about tax system, stuff like that, because for us that's not really relevant. But for this sake of this talk, I want to focus on Berlin. And this is a special service to use, basically all that you need for your next trip coming to Berlin. I chose a map which is a bit older because that is actually the old division of Berlin. So you can see, I don't know if you can read in the back, but it's American sector, British sector, French sector, and the Soviet sector. And the yellow part, exactly, thanks, that is basically what used to be West Berlin, and the other part is what used to be East Berlin, right? What is really interesting to see is now, almost 25 years after the wall has fallen, the country is reunited. One of the interesting things is that actually the cool stuff is happening in East Berlin, which is a bit counterintuitive because that used to be the Soviet part, so people would think, oh, it's maybe it's not as cool, but actually what's happened, this is where it's at. And nowadays Berlin really, I don't know if some of you guys have been recently. If not, I really recommend to go. Yeah? You have been? Oh, okay, excellent. So one expert, so you probably also know the club that I'm going to speak about in a second. Berlin in these days has become a bit of a hotspot in Europe, and what's especially cool to see that in recent years, especially with the economic crisis going on in Southern Europe, we have a lot of people coming in from the Southern European countries, for example, which is amazing for us because we can use Berlin, and we're going to speak about that later, as a hub for all the stuff that we do in terms of building European players. We are located basically right at the wall, or where the wall used to be. So that's also a bit of an interesting thing. Our office, which I'm going to show you in a second, is actually located in the former death strip. So where there used to be landmines 25 years ago, now we built companies that sell stuff on the internet. Yeah? And one other thing as well, just to explain a bit about the coolness of Berlin, if you ever come, pretty close by is a club called Berghain, which according to the New York Times is the best club in the world. At least they said 3 years ago, and 3 years in club history obviously is a long time, but you definitely should check that out. It's known for its long parties, and by long I mean it goes from Friday to Sunday 4 p.m. So it's actually worth checking out. I think actually we do have a lot of interns that just come work with us because they want to go there on the weekends. I'm pretty sure about that. That's the campus. That's where we're located. We are called Project A Ventures. It's one of those names that you come up with as like a working title, and it's a crappy name, but it's not crappy enough for you to be forced to change it. So we stuck with that basically. Yeah, some more stuff about Berlin, where we are located right in the middle, and Berlin has become a very young, very vibrant city. What used to be the front line of the Cold War now is, I think, just as I mentioned, a bit of a melting pot, like a very high energy, very dynamic city. And also a lot of startup stuff is happening because Berlin itself doesn't have a lot of industry. Because of its isolated nature, we don't have a lot of big companies in there. So the number one industry is tourism, and the number two industry probably then is the stuff that we do. So digital, technology, startups, that kind of stuff. And a couple of cool examples, just briefly, and there's many more. Vuga is one of the top game publishers on Facebook. They're located in Berlin, and they do an excellent job at hiring people from all over the world. They develop Flash games for Facebook and now also a lot of mobile games. And those guys who can do that very well, they're like unicorns. And they get those people from all over the world, get them to move Berlin. And apparently they do a good job also to explain to those guys how awesome Berlin is and demonstrate it to them. And the people stick around. And that's also a bit of the mission that I'm trying to do here, make a bit of advertisement for Berlin. So they're extremely successful. SoundCloud has been founded by 2 Swedish DJs who moved to Berlin, and we're very active in the DJing scene. And obviously now, I don't know if you guys know this, but that is probably going to be a global, the global champion in that space. We can share close.
SoundCloud spoke here
Okay, perfect. Year. Yeah.
Yep. Alexander Jung.
Yeah, Alex. Yeah. ResearchGate is a company it's like a knowledge exchange social network for scientists, and Benchmark Capital invested a couple of years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago. And Sechs Wunderkinder is one of the most recent investments, the first ever investment by Sequoia Capital in Berlin. They do a very nicely done, very successful, very powerful to-do list app for your Macs, for the web, as well as for Android and for iOS. Yeah? But those are just a couple of examples. Again, this is in the background is the famous club. And what is it that we actually do? Because Burton mentioned, we do a bit of venture capital. We invest, and for the past 7 years, I've been working with online entrepreneurs and helping them build some companies myself, and so on. And in beginning of 2012, we started Project A Ventures. And this, this is a replacement of a slide with a lot of facts, blah, 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 all rising around. So I try to reduce it really in the sake of simplicity. At the very core, we're a venture capital fund, not of gigantic size, to be honest. It's roughly $110 million US, which for European or German standards then in turn actually is quite sizable. What differentiates us is that we have 100 employees on payroll, which is something that is obviously a bit unusual for venture capital funds. So this is when you think of venture capital in terms of Sand Hill Road with nice offices and very smart guys, but few guys, that is not us, right? I mean, we are guys like me, unfortunately. Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, we still believe that our model is something unique, especially for the European market. I'm going to speak about why we think that actually makes sense. But what we do with those 100 people is they're divided into different operational teams. So we do not only invest money like a standard VC, but we also try to help grow the companies. And one big part, for example, is engineering and tech. With Berlin heating up that much now, and everybody trying to do their startup in Berlin, it's actually quite hard, especially for first-time entrepreneurs, to get a good tech team on board. So we would give you, if you were to start a company with us, we would engage in a financing deal, and then we'd also give you the first tech team, and they would work with you as your initial tech team, and they would help you recruit your own tech team, and then they would withdraw over a period of, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, maybe 12 months. But that is obviously very helpful because A, it's very hard to get those people in the first place, and B, they're also very experienced. They have been doing this for many, many times. They don't lose their patience or their nerves when things go wrong because they have seen everything go wrong that potentially could go wrong. A second part is customer acquisition and business intelligence. We try to incorporate in all of our companies a customer acquisition strategy that is very focused on data, on business intelligence, and understanding, segmenting who are your customers. So one thing that's also nice is because we can create a bit of infrastructure, we can have some experts at the very core of the fund. We can give technology to the companies that typically they wouldn't have as a small startup. So all of our companies, they get this fully fledged business intelligence suite included, and it's like 3 guys in a garage, and they have this huge BI tool, and they're okay, what am I going to do with it? And it's like, well, don't use it yet, but at least make sure you get all the data, and eventually you're going to be using it. That's one of the aspects where we can leverage a lot of operational expertise that we have, put it into tools, put it into software, put it into intellectual property, and we give that alongside our investment. Maybe a bit about what segments do we focus on. If you hear a bit about the customer acquisition, BI, customer retention, we do all stuff online, so it can be B2B, can be B2C, but everything probably with a bit of a consumerized approach. So if it were a B2B product, ideally it would have to be sellable almost like a consumer product. So that's probably where our expertise lies, to create products for end customers and also market them to end customers. So if it's a software as a service product that sells for, I don't know, $100 per seat per month, that we still would do. But if it's like a $100,000 license, that's probably not our space. We invest between, I would say in dollars, probably $500K to $3.5, $4 million roughly per deal. And we invest both into external teams, so teams that have found themselves in school or in previous jobs and they want to start their own company, and they approach us for money. We would invest in those, and we also start our own companies. So we find teams who work together with teams who maybe have worked with us before. They want to have their next company. We have a couple of ideas. They have a couple of ideas, so we bounce them around. And this is what we would call incubation, where we start something from scratch. And the other part where external teams approach us, that is what we would call acceleration. Yeah, and that's a bit of what we do. Yeah, that's the team in one of the worst photos ever to put on slides in this lecture hall, probably. We are a group of 4 friends, and that is actually probably one of the things in the past 2 years that I have grown to value the most. I mean, it's easier said than done, but I mean, you're all probably already interested in entrepreneurship, and that is, a decision that I can only congratulate you guys to. I think that the cool thing is really what entrepreneurship means to me is that you get to choose the people that you work with. It only has to be, performance-wise, it has to be okay, and then it's already amazing because you get to choose the people that you work with. You spend so much of your awake time at your workplace. It's just not worth spending it with people that you don't like. And for me, probably one of the coolest things about Project A that it's going okay so far, and I get to work with those guys who are good friends of mine. And we also managed to maneuver around a couple of difficult situations, basically, where we still remain friends even in tense situations, and that is probably one of the cool things. I've been working together with those guys for 7 years, more or less. Together, we served as managing directors for a thing called Rocket Internet, and I'm not sure about if some people probably have heard of it. In 2007, Christian here was the original founder of Rocket Internet. I mean, obviously it's the Sambor brothers who are the masterminds behind that, but we were a bit of the operational team. So first Christian and Florian and then me joining also, and for quite some time we served as a managing director team for Rocket Internet in a time in which Rocket itself grew extremely, and it has been a really great time to be part of it. For those of you guys who don't know it, it's a bit of a, by now I would say it's company building on almost an industrial global scale. So Rocket Internet has an infrastructure all around the world, and they roll out business models in the online space over that platform. So one thing that they do, for example, is they created a clone, or we created back then a clone of Zappos in the United States, so the shoe slash fashion business that we have here in the States. And they first did it in Germany, where it's extremely successful. After 5 years, they're trying to reach 2 billion net sales in euros, so it's really, really successful. And then they moved beyond that and rolled it out over the global platform that we had back then, and also went, for example, to Brazil or to Southeast Asia, to Australia, or to South Africa, to really roll it out over the global platform. And that is Rocket Internet. It's also known for having a very aggressive company culture, so for being very determined to win. If you read some on TechCrunch, there's some leaks from internal communication that might be interesting to have a look at. But that has been one of the defining things, to be honest, for the Berlin ecosystem in the past years, because Rocket by now is one of the most important employers of Berlin. Coming back to the situation in Berlin that we do not have a lot of industry and a lot of traditional companies, Rocket Internet as itself now is one of the most important employers of the city in Berlin, which also tells you a bit about the spirit of that city. So that's where we got to know each other. In 2007, Rocket was more of a small think tank, but now it's an entity with thousands of people. That's where we got to know each other, and then we decided to do our own thing. And why did we decide to do that, what we do? And now I'm going to speak some about the European characteristics. So I would estimate every 45 seconds, there's a journalist somewhere around the world who creates an article that is called, "Will XYZ be the next Silicon Valley?" Right? There's probably some cool Google hack through which you can look for all of those articles. There's a website which I found which has a maps with all of the next Silicon Valley. It's actually quite interesting. So there's a next Silicon Valley, for example, in Rwanda. Didn't know that. But apparently there's also a lot of tech innovation happening there. And among the candidates that are frequently on the line, there's places like Tel Aviv, London, Stockholm, Moscow, and quite frequently Berlin. We actually think that is probably not going to happen. Right? I mean, it's Europe and Berlin in special. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff happening, and it's worthwhile for us to invest there. It's a lot of fun. But it's really unlikely that this is going to be the next Silicon Valley. The level of quality I think that we find here is just completely different. And in fact, actually, if we look at Europe, we think there's some specific things that are very different. What we observe is there's less and smaller exits in the European ecosystem. I had this huge chart where I was really kind of smartly explaining why that is, but I was told to leave that out. So you have to just accept it as a fact. We also think there's a less developed angel operational ecosystem. I mean, like a lot of cool stuff is being done to professionalize that some more. But for example, just anecdotally, when the dot-com bubble burst in Germany, a lot of people went back to their old jobs, right? Back to consulting, whereas here, more people stuck around. So if you look at business angels in Germany specifically that have 10+ year experience in building online businesses, there's not that many around. And that obviously then is interesting for us because we can replace some of that, what you would need to start your own company, with our infrastructure. So instead of going to 5 to 10 people who would give you 50K each and who are going to help you in the first 6 months, we can replace them a bit because they don't exist to that extent yet, right? Obviously, if companies like the Zalando company with its 2 billion net sales in 5 years, and that might become a big European exit, hopefully those guys, with all the millionaires that such an exit would create, they would reinvest some in the ecosystem. But at the time being, we just don't have that many people who do that. And that is obviously creating a bit of a room which we can fill with our operational venture capital model. Third part, there's also less developed financing ecosystem. So with our ticket sizes, as I mentioned before, we are actually quite a sizable player already in Germany. There's a Series A crunch that you can read about in the press. So people diagnose, I think probably the same actually also here, but in Europe especially, a lot of seed money and not so much Series A money. And this is also one of the reasons why probably we see some hinderings to growth. If there were to be more money for companies that show initial traction, we think we could actually do more stuff. And the fourth part actually still is, and maybe it's not even an argument why it shouldn't be, but a bit of a statement from our side. We actually think that we should look at Europe as a whole, and not only as Berlin or Stockholm or Riga or Tallinn or Vilnius or whatever, but viewed as the whole region. Obviously, there's difference in tax schemes and so on, but apart from that, it really doesn't make much difference. To us, if a company is based in Berlin or in London, it really doesn't make a difference. So we're completely agnostic about that. The language that we speak in a company, despite my pretty bad English and my limited command of the accents and so on, we speak English in the company basically because a lot of people are not from Germany anyway. So we tap into a lot of those people who come from Southern Europe, for example. We have a lot of people from Spain, Italy working with us. And we don't really care about whether it's a German company or English company or Ukrainian company. So we think if there's a chance for something happening, it has to be a bit of a European network. Now, obviously, that is not really easy to be combined with a cluster, with an excellence network or something like that. But we think that we should review Europe as its whole. Yeah? And those are all points against which we try to work by establishing Project A as a venture capital investor. But we also but who thinks about the venture capital model in a different way, in a way that we do not only want to give money, but we also want to give operational expertise. Now, some people also try to do that here in the States, obviously. But I think in Germany or in Europe, it's more obvious because the ecosystem itself is not that developed. We're trying to do that. That will be one of my simple messages that I want to get across. Yeah, I think some more minutes to make it a bit more concrete. I'm going to walk you through, really briefly, through 3 of our portfolio companies. We are around since for 2 years now. There's one gentleman also here from our limited partner, so I have to be a bit careful about what I mentioned. But we invest quite quickly. So far, we have done 20 investments, which is above plan. Obviously, that is not a good thing per se. I mean, it could be genius, could also be stupid, right? I mean, only time will tell. But 3 of those I would like to point out. One is Tyrendo. Tyrendo is something that is a company that sells something online that changes people's lives, and that is car tires. We are making the world a better place by selling car tires online. And why I'm telling you guys the story is because I think that is actually an example of maybe a typical European exit. Because we started a company in March 2012. Yeah, this is one of, I see people flinching their eyes. That's one of the slides that survived from the original presentation. Basically, it's just a timeline, and it shows that within 18 months, we could build up that company through our operational teams that we have, through expertise that we have. In March 2012, there were like 5 people, and one and a half years later, there's I think 70 or 80 people, and we sold the company after 1.5 years for 50 million euros, 50 million euros. So that is not a spectacular exit, I think, for US terms, but we think actually for Germany it's quite sizable, especially for the short period of time. And what is happening, and I just want to show you guys this, is no magic, but really solid execution, right? So when we think also about the questions, do we want to create more Skypes, and do we want to create more SoundClouds and more Sechs Wunderkinder and stuff like that in Europe? We definitely want to do that. Just for our own standards, what do we want to do? We also think there's real value in creating those companies, typical German companies that are healthy, I think, for an ecosystem, because it creates something. There's positive examples of where you can make money on investments. It trains people, and also it creates some money that flows back into the ecosystem. So a lot of stuff was happening. I mean, we launched. There's also, I think, one interesting aspect of European companies. They tend to internationalize quite quickly. The German market is limited. Then we went to Switzerland. By the way, thank God for Switzerland. It's the best market ever for us to go into. The Swiss, just like the Germans, but they pay more and they then return stuff, and it's fantastic. The Benelux countries, as well as going some to Scandinavia, so we could internationalize quite quickly. We did a lot of TV commercials. The first TV commercial was amazing quality. It looked like Driver, the Ryan Gosling movie, but was a disaster performance-wise. So we did another TV commercial, which has completely stupid humor, and it's amazing. So people love that. Also, one big learning: don't judge by your own humor if something is successful. So sometimes we have to hit the taste of the people who buy tires online and change it themselves, and apparently that's not my humor. and a lot of fast iterations. So no magic happening here, but really just consistent, I think, execution, bread and butter business, and we were able to create a quite sizable European-German exit, and this is one of the things that we aim to do some more. Second example is, and just not too much details, but those guys you should look out for. It's 4 guys from Sweden. I think some of them are former Spotify people, and they created the Tumblr for e-commerce. So Ticktail, as their product is called, is basically a very easy software as a service, like a Shopify, if some of you guys know that. Extremely simple software as a service solution where you can create your own shop. They come from Stockholm, and they're going to take over the world, I think. They're going to announce, I think, a financing round at some point soon, and they're doing extremely well. We were lucky enough to be investors in that company, helped some on the side with some operational input. Just one of the examples also where we found something in Sweden through co-investors who opened up the opportunity for us. But Sweden and Berlin, Sweden and Estonia and so on, there's a lot of access, cross-border activities that can be done in Europe. And one last example, and then I'm through with my hopefully simplistic enough presentation, is our first step into the United States. Now, we don't suffer from over self-estimation. We understand that what we do, the United States haven't been waiting for, because the ecosystem is very different here. But nevertheless, we invested in a company 1 year ago, roughly, that's called Saatchi Online. And Charles Saatchi is he's the founder of Saatchi & Saatchi, which is one of the big advertising agencies in the world. And then he sold that, and he got into emerging art. And emerging as a collector. And emerging art is, in our definition, art that is done by artists who are at the very beginning of their career, maybe before they're being discovered, maybe they have their first years of having an agent and gallery representation. And that is his big thing. He discovered Damien Hirst. I don't know if you guys know that. It's like a shark in formaldehyde. Yeah, I mean, that's the art piece. And he created this website where people could upload their stuff, their art, and show it to the world, right? Because the argument basically was that why should galleries and agents be deciding what is good taste? Let people decide. I mean, if somebody from Germany likes what this guy from Argentina has painted, let him. He can enjoy it. So they created this website, and the company is based in Los Angeles. And 1 year ago, we saw that also together with a co-investor and decided, well, maybe we can do some of what we did with the car tires with the art, right? We didn't go for TV commercials this time, but we did very solid execution, helped the company grow. First time in the United States, and actually this is going extremely well. So revenues have basically grown by 1,000% in the past 12 months, and actually people buy a lot of art online, and it's quite amazing to see how you can convince people to buying art online, because like you Google for art, then there's an ad showing up, why don't you buy art online, it's only $1,000 a piece, and they go, oh sure, yeah, I'll buy that, I've never seen it, but here's my credit card. And that has been probably one of the interesting experiences of the past year. Also a bit of an example where we did not only invest, I think, like $3 million into this company, but also helped it operationally. So our people were basically flying back and forth and helping the company. And now the company is standing on its own feet. So that's also very important for us. What we can't forget in all of this model is it's not an agency business, but it's an empowerment business. So we're really there to help the guys to build up the capabilities themselves, to recruit their own teams, because otherwise it wouldn't fly. Ultimately, we make money only if the companies become valuable, and if a potential acquirer or potential follow-on investor looks under the hood and sees, oh, this is only running because the weird guys from Germany come all the time and do some stuff, then the whole thing won't fly. So we're always on a mission to empower entrepreneurs. At this time, we think Europe, there's still potential for that, what we're doing, and we're seeing great successes with that model. Obviously, an open invitation to all of you. If you ever come across to Berlin, there's some contact details, I think, also on the slide share thing. Send us an email, stop by. We'd love to chat some more about it anytime. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my really short presentation.
Signe, could you come up front too? So actually, let's go back a bit, because you wanted to talk about structure.
Do you think that 4 is a lucky number?
4, because 4 people?
Yeah.
So we are 4, and obviously it's a bit of it's a bit complicated because sometimes you have theoretically you have situations where you can't decide because you're 2 on 2, right? So we created, so we organize in a way that if one guy is against it, we don't do it. So it's a veto system, and then it doesn't really matter, right? So if one guy doesn't want to do it, we don't do it.
So how do you afford 100 employees? I think you said your carry was getting to the structure issues, your business model. Your carry is not the normal carry that you would see here in the Valley or elsewhere around Europe.
So basically,
sorry, management fee.
Yeah. So we think this is also actually one of the next steps about the how the venture capital model itself will evolve. So a big part of our management fee, basically all of the management fee goes into supporting the structure. So we don't make any money personally off the management fee, but we have fixed salaries and that's it. So
your management fee is a little bit higher than other.
It would be a bit higher.
Normal funds.
Yeah, okay. Because our LPs thankfully share the vision and support that in a way.
Okay, questions for Uwe, and then we'll have questions for Uwe and Signe. Yes, sir.
I'm from Estonia.
Tere, Urme.
Like the 2 best-known brands over here, German brands, are probably T-Mobile and BMW. Like, what's the activities, the startup activity in those 2 industries?
So you mean telecommunication and automotive? So the automotive players, I think they're doing slowly something. So Mercedes, they just invested into a company that does a Uber clone, basically, for Germany. So I think it's slowly starting. Telecommunication, so Telecom, T-Mobile is Deutsche Telekom, German telco. They created their own little accelerator space. So they did basically what a lot of people do, which is providing a bit of initial cash and a working space. So they do that, and there's some good stuff happening actually there. So I think, slowly things are starting. Obviously, it could always be done more, but both of the industries, telecommunication a bit quicker than the automotives, but I think there's some movement, albeit it's not huge, to be honest.
So it's more like incubation,
yeah.
Kind of independent startups cropping up and then executing.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that corporate venturing, to be honest, but this is the things that we see is those, accelerators, corporate venture capital kind of things.
Who was the buyer of Tirendo?
It's the biggest competitor. It was a publicly listed company. And we think also, we got, for example, Sebastian Vettel on board, who the Americans, I think, don't know that well, but he's one of Germany's sweethearts because he's the Formula world champion 3 times in a row. And he was the spokesperson, basically, for the company. And he stands for a more consumerized approach, a more general public approach. I think their websites really cater to experts who know exactly what tires they need on their car. And we, with the TV commercials, with his friendly face and thumbs up, this is great, you should buy here, that appealed to a bit of a wider audience. So I think for them it made a lot of sense to get those guys on board who also have a lot of e-commerce expertise, because they came from the tire industry. Those guys smell like rubber, and we, the nerds, they could use us, I guess.
Yes, sir, in the back. You, yeah, in the T-shirt.
You say that the tech team spent 3 to 6 months with the startup, and they're frustrated to come back, especially when they are successful?
So we encourage, if people want to stay with the company, that they can. That happens because they fall in love with, wow, tires, I've been, now the smell of tires is just, fascinating. And they actually they move over to the company. And we encourage that to happen because that's a very good thing, actually. At the same time, I think we can attract some of the top talents because they like to work on different topics, on different challenges. Because typically in the beginning it's quite complex, and then at least for those e-commerce-like businesses, in the beginning it's complex, and then maybe the marginal learning curve for them also is not as steep anymore, right? And they want to focus something new. They want to work with new technology. Different markets. They want to do something for Brazil as well and stuff like that. So, so then they like that they can move after a couple of months again.
Next question. I think we had one from over here. Dirk, again.
Quick question. You showed basically 2 models. One with Saatchi, where you deliberately went to the US market very early, the other one where you basically went broad and created a European champion.
Yeah.
What determines the decision which model you want to follow?
So it's a case-by-case decision. For Saatchi, it was actually, it had been a global business to begin with because it connects a global audience. This year we shipped to 80 countries, 80 countries, so it's a very global business to begin with. I think we always look at expanding to all over Europe quite quickly. I think that's, in the most cases, that is quite easily possible, so we try to do that really quickly. Because the equity story just is a different story if you have a pan-European play as compared to a German play. So if a business model for some reason would be confined to Germany only, we probably would be skeptical. So it's not so much about decision, do we want to internationalize, but actually a decision point that we have to take before we actually invest. So that's one of the boxes that we would like to check typically. Is there a chance to build a pan-European player? Because we think of a lot of companies actually as European players from the beginning, rather than just Germany or just Germany plus Austria or something like that.
So let's talk a little bit about Estonia versus Germany in terms of level of ecosystem development, angels, venture capital. How many companies out of Estonia do you see end up moving to Berlin? Or do you see, in terms of cross-border investing, German angels beginning to look at Estonia these days?
I think most of our startups would go to UK or US. I don't know how you can attract us.
Well,
maybe
not with
better,
taxes.
with taxes.
You have the models and the taxes. I mean, what's there to do? So
Yeah.
I think what we see, and I think we started with a couple of Estonian companies. We also started, for example, with Zendesk, Mikkel's company. Those guys, they went straight from Denmark to the US, right? And for them, they really, why should they have to make a detour via Berlin? It's a great place, Berlin, but it's not a, if you can go straight to the US, if the company is that great, I think they should do it by all means. Yeah.
Zendesk, by the way, is presenting here. Mikkel Svana, CEO, on February 10.
Yeah, don't miss that. He's an amazing guy. I think that's going to be super fun.
Do you see any new accelerators or entities emerging in Estonia with a model similar to Project A? I mean, you're very similar to Rocket in terms of your model in some ways, right?
In some ways, in the aspect that we do operational input. What is really important for us is we invest like a traditional venture capitalist. So we want to work with real entrepreneurs who also have significant, majority ownership of the company. That's important to us because we want to create healthy, self-sustaining companies. The Rocket model, I think the equity structure is a bit different typically.
Do you see any new?
I think actually that ambient sounds investment is quite similar to you. So former Skype inventors, 4 guys.
It's always 4.
Yeah, always 4. That's why I was actually asking what's the magic number. They are quite similar to a partner as well, I think. And as for accelerators, I think game founders. I mean, they have only maybe 1, 2 companies from Estonia and others from Singapore, India, Ukraine. Very, 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 very international. So.
We have time for a couple more questions. Yes, sir.
Can I show my video clip? No.
Again, we don't have a sound system here. Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
So we heard that in Estonia, most of the focus is sort of on IT.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, IT related to all kinds of other industries.
What about Germany?
So there's probably a couple of. So typically, Germany has also a rich culture in, real engineering and stuff like software engineering and stuff like that. So there's things happening there. I think the latest trend that we see and the wave that we're swimming in, it's very consumerized because there's a lot of people also who come from consulting backgrounds, from investment banking backgrounds in recent years because they see a bit of a movement there. So people come from those industries rather than from the engineering disciplines mostly. So products, I think, overall tend to be, at the moment at least, in Berlin, in this sub-segment that we deal with, to be very consumerized actually.
Well, it seemed that way. You were mentioning one of your success stories was direct to consumer, I believe.
Yeah.
Some of shoes. And it's curious to me that with Estonia, one of your big successes was Skype, which was B2C, and why it's gone a different direction.
No, the thing is, you have only 1.3 million people in Estonia, so you have to go global from basically from day one, you know, and you have 40 million.
80, yeah.
80, yeah. Even.
Last time I checked.
So you can have B2C. Basically, in Estonia, it's pointless to have B2C. Usually B2B.
So are you saying that the investments that Band of Angels network in Estonia is really just focused on the Estonian market?
No, we are not. Not at all, actually. Not at all. I mean, we take Estonian startups, but we want them to grow. We buy tickets to go to Silicon Valley or to London next week, basically. We have to go global.
Right, but I'm referring to the properties that you invest in, right? The focus of those companies and their development efforts is on B2B or college.
It can be B2C as well, but I've seen mostly at the moment it's B2B and IT related.
So I'd like to thank our speakers. We have some small thank you gifts. And we'd like to remind each of you that our next session, again, is not next Monday. Apologies for the less than polished approach, but Signe, thank you so much for coming all the way from Tallinn.
Thank you.
Uwe,
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Andrus, thank you for coming all the way from San Francisco. Sunnyvale, yes. We invite you down to come and meet the speakers, network, connect with each other, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks where we will be doing Bulgaria and Slovenia. Thank you very much.